Today is July 27th, 2023, and the location of the interview is located in Walla Walla, Washington. I am interviewing Roth. Do you go by Ron or Ronald?
I go by Ron, but my full name is Ronald Leonard Roth.
Okay, alrighty. And you were a veteran of the Vietnam War, leaving the service at what rank?
Lance Corporal, E3.
All right. Dixie Ferguson and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview today. And I've asked you this, but where were you born and when?
I was born in Pendleton, Oregon in 1949, May 30th.
Okay. All right. And again, what war and branch of service did you serve?
I was in the Marine Corps and Vietnam War. I was in the Marine Corps 20 months.
20 months, okay. All right. And you've already answered where you served. That was Vietnam. That was your only out of country.
I was trained in Camp Pendleton, and I went straight to Vietnam after the Camp Pendleton, and I came back, and I was out of the Marine Corps in 20 months. She laughed.
You didn't waste any time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
You know,
and were you drafted or enlisted?
I was drafted, and when I was drafted, I decided I didn't want to be drafted into the Army, so I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I enlisted.
Alrighty. And were you in Pendleton at the time?
No, I was in Walla Walla.
In Walla Walla. Were your parents here?
Yes.
And what did they think about you joining the Marine Corps?
They were terribly upset. Because my older brother was an artillery communications person, and he saw a lot of action. And then my other brother, Richard, was a helicopter pilot in the Mekong Delta. So they weren't really happy about me being shipped to Vietnam.
For sure. And you were the last one to
Yes.
go over? Yeah. By the way, were either one back home again?
Yes. Yeah, my oldest brother was back home, and that's kind of, he was there early, 65, and he made it seem doable. Like it was, hey, we're just over there, we get to shoot guns and stuff, and it's just fine. And
There wasn't the build-up.
And all I can say is, to him, is he stirred him up pretty good.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And maybe you've answered this, but why did you pick the Marine Corps?
Because I felt that I needed the most advanced training in combat that I could get, and I didn't feel the Army had that kind of discipline.
Were you disappointed?
No, I stood up and handled it. It was I loved regiment stuff. I love having places you need to be. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, how can you be depressed? You're always in the forward motion of doing something.
And the year was 1968 when you were in training?
Yes.
Okay.
And 69 and when I went to Vietnam.
Okay, so you knew pretty much being in the Marine Corps and what was ahead of you.
Yes.
Okay. And you were at Camp Pendleton.
Yes.
And could you describe your early days in training, what that was like?
Well, it's pretty good because I was in ROTC in high school, and I almost flunked out of it. But that being said, I learned my right from my left, and that's a good thing to know if you're in the Marine Corps, because if they say right face, you turn right. And so I ended up as a squad leader in boot camp.
Very good. And how long was your training?
I think 16 weeks, 14 weeks, 16 weeks, I'm not sure.
You had a graduation. Were your parents, were they there?
No.
What was that like, your graduation?
Horrible. Okay, I had one guy in my squad that shouldn't have been in the Marine Corps. He was deficient on pretty much all levels. And at the last inspection, the captain and the sergeant, the drill instructor, comes up to him and asks him, who is the commanding officer? And he said it was Sergeant Collins, but he called him Captain Collins. And he said, well, who's your platoon leader? And he says, oh, that's Sergeant Paddock. And it was terrible after that. That was the wrong answers at the somebody that wasn't taught the chain of command quite correctly. And so it was, we got out. We were the honor platoon. It was for as far as boot camp, it went fairly good for me.
Did you go on up to Camp Pendleton for your advance? Or, I'm sorry.
AIT,
Yes.
AIT, BIT. I'm not sure where that was, but I thought it was Camp Pendleton still.
Yeah.
And then Recon school was Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton. And it sounds like you do remember your instructors.
How can you forget them? They're such wonderful people.
I don't know. Is there a manual for the language that they use on you guys? There's got to be a manual.
There's one story in the book. I could read it to you. It's about my friend and I joined. Chet Atley, he was a good friend of mine, and he was drafted. So we decided we're going to join the Marines. He was kind of a hunter, fisherman guy, and so we're in there in the Marine Corps, and the situation is I'm in the first squad. And the drill instructor calls out and says, reverse formation. And he was in the last squad. So they all reverse formation, and the last squad's in the front now. And the first squad's real disciplined. I mean, when you're at attention, you look that way. You don't look this way, no way, except right down the center there. And the last squad doesn't really need to do that much. They can look around a bit. So now he's up front, and Sergeant Rogers saw him looking around, and he says, you like the eye? Fuck me. And he comes up and he takes his knuckles and starts beating his eyes like this. And Chuck's head kept bouncing back, and I was in the back rank, and I was like, wow. And finally his hat flew off, and I laughed. I broke out laughing, and Rogers comes through the ranks and just slams me in the guts, and I fall to the deck. And I wasn't laughing, but I was inside still, because just to see my buddy getting his eyes beat, I was. It reminded me kind of the Three Stooges kind of thing.
They can get by with it.
Yeah, no. Just smacking him in the eyes. Keep your eyes open. Keep them open.
And I'll bet he's never forgot that story.
Yeah, I'm sure he remembers it pretty good. But I couldn't help but laugh, just seeing his head bob.
Oh boy.
So I had an okay time.
Yeah. What were your living conditions like there?
We're in the billets with a squad in each billet, and so there's double racks. So there's enough for a full platoon in a billet. You had your squad.
And when did you first learn of your assignment to Vietnam? Do you remember that day?
Well, it was when they give out the MOSs, they gave me the 0311, but they gave Chuck, which I'm really, really happy about, they gave him a photographer
and 0311 is what?
Infantry.
Okay.
And that's when I went, okay, let's get a little more trained here, now that I know what I am. And so I was totally gung-ho. I wanted to be the best.
So I
really did.
Was there any nervousness? You were just gung-ho, ready to go?
Even on patrols. One of my films on my patrol, it shows us waiting for the bird, and we're just joking around, happy. And then I got a picture of another team, and they're sitting there kind of going, oh, God. But we're just, hey, let's go get them. That's how I felt.
That was the tone. That was helpful. Maybe that was
Well,
the best way to...
You know, I take it back to the mantra, fortune favors the bold. And if you're afraid, look out, you're going to get it. But if you're bold, you may get it, but you may not. You know, that's the real essence of that statement, I think.
When you went over, did you go with your group
No.
to Vietnam?
No.
Okay. How did you get over there, and tell me how that was?
Well, I get off the airplane and there's all these silver caskets of bodies going back to the world.
Where did you land?
In Da Nang. And I was assigned to battalion Recon, and so they brought me over to there, and I was there about a week, and I got this old uniform that really didn't fit, and the shoes didn't fit, and the gun didn't work, and I was there for a week, and then one evening they called us out and they said, Force Recon had a couple teams killed, we need volunteers. Volunteers, and everybody just went, no, we don't want to go to a place where a lot of guys get killed, you know. So I didn't volunteer, and then they said, okay, these men fall out, and they called me, and then that evening I was driven to the Force Recon compound, and there I was, with the best guys in the Marine Corps.
Great. And when you first landed, what were your first impressions of Vietnam?
Intensely hot, confusing, lots of action, everything moving. Like I said, the caskets weren't quite a good welcome for us, you know. So, but it was just oppressive, you know, just the heat, being out on the tarmac, and you know, it was.
And what month was it that you landed, or you arrived?
I think it was November.
Still really hot though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's hot.
Yep.
Always hot. Except monsoons, it got a little chilly, but not too bad.
Yeah. So you were only like 1 week in base camp when you were sent out then?
No, I was assigned to 4th Platoon, and I was trained as a corpsman. In other words, I was trained to give IVs, and I carried the aid pack for us. So I had to be trained, and probably while I was being trained, and there's a couple other things that I was being trained with, but I lost my thought there.
Going forward, going out to the field.
Oh yeah. While I was doing that, we probably went on 2 or 3 patrols, which nothing happened. They were like camping trips, except without a fire. You know, you go out and you OP an area where you're watching a valley. You have your area that you do, and we didn't see anything. 2 or 3 patrols.
And how many were in a patrol?
Between 7 and 9.
Okay. And how heavy? I know, a lot of equipment.
Oh yeah, 90-pound packs.
90 pounds. Hot. And was it?
Well, your uniform was always wet, and you know, it's always soaking wet.
Yep. Never dried out. And the terrain?
Unbelievable.
Like
cliffs, mountains. We were up in the mountains mainly, the triple canopy jungle.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, it's hard to get out if they got you.
Yeah. By the way, were you hearing lots of stories about Quezon? Had they talked much about that?
We heard about Quezon, but not really. Not really.
Yeah.
And we knew about the rock pile. What was the Monkey Mountain? That was another one that was pretty active. Yeah. But we were at An Hoa, which was closer to the Laos border.
So you were on over to the west.
25 miles.
And what was the mission when they were sending you out in your patrol?
To find them. And call in and destroy them if we could.
I asked.
Yeah. You know, Recon, you want to get out there and get back without them knowing it. Then you really did a recon patrol.
Okay, would you describe this? Probably not a typical recon. Describe going out there and what you did and how you were looking for them.
Well, which part of the team? Because I was tail end Charlie, I was a medical guy, I was Deuce Point, I was, so there were different kind of ways you looked at things.
Yeah, well, going out looking for the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Standard procedure was we'd use the CH-46 C-Night and and we would come into wherever our LZ was. Of course, there's several ways we got in. Sometimes we'd jump off the back of the ramp. Sometimes they would set down. But if they sat down, there was a protocol that you sit there for 1 minute. Everybody's watching because you don't want to get off the bird and then they start shooting, and then it can be.
And that's a very visible machine.
Yes, it's pretty big. It weighs tons.
And it's noisy.
Yeah. So that's the first thing is you wait until there's nothing going on. Then the team exits the chopper, and then you look for the OP. You look for a good OP where you can see whatever they think is there. They'll tell you what they think is there, and then they'll say, "Go see what you can find."
And an OP is
observation post.
Like just for the general.
Yeah, well, it's in the book too because it's kind of confusing. OP is an observation, and then there's an op, which is an op order. So, and they're both spelled OP. So, an op is an op order, and an OP is the place where you look.
Okay. And how
That's
long
difficult.
would you just pick one place and stay there?
No,
For days?
no. We'd have a playground of like 4 clicks by 6 clicks.
Which would be about how big?
6,000 meters by 4,000 meters, and we could go anywhere in there that we seemed, we could see what was going on, or.
And how did you camouflage yourself?
No, on my book, you should take a look at that paint that I put on. 2 different colors of paint, and the best thing I can say about being camouflaged, if you see the enemy, you don't move. What you see is, if you're out there, you see motion. Everything's green, man. Everything is green. So what you see is that the contrast between the jungle and you, and that's what that's why when you see them you freeze because they can't see you.
Oh.
And that's true camouflage at that point.
Yeah.
But if you turn and say, "Hey," then they got you.
Were they good fighters?
They were excellent. They wanted to kill us many times.
Yeah.
And it was. I can tell you one time. It was my first patrol as a point man, and I don't know who told them to do this or whatever, but the chopper flew right over the Ville we were supposed to OP. And we're like, "What the hell are you doing, man? You're letting them know we're here." So they let us up on, they flew up someplace and let us off, and we just headed away from the Ville because we knew they knew we were here. So at about 3 in the morning, we believed in psychic stuff too. If somebody felt something, it was okay to bring it up and talk about it. And so about 3 in the morning, this one, I don't know who it was, woke up and said, "We got to get out of here. We've got to get out." And we're all like, "It's 3 in the morning, man."
So you trusted their instincts.
Oh yeah, there's a couple times where if we wouldn't have done what we did, we would have been dead. No doubt about it.
Interesting.
So we get up, and I'm walking through this jungle at night where you can't see anything, so I'm moving really slow. And
how can you see?
You don't. You feel. You're feeling. You got to put each foot down real gently because you don't know if there's a hole there or not.
Snake.
And you anything. You just, it's very slow moving. So we moved out, and we got to this area, and I moved out, and it was defoliated. It was a huge defoliated area, and there was a hill, and it went down to this little stream, and I was going, wow, this is really weird, defoliate, what are we doing here? So I said, let's get out of this place, and I went down to the stream, crossed it, and went up to this, climbed this heavy hill. I wouldn't call it a cliff, because I climbed cliffs too, but went up the side of this hill, and we sat down and were rested, and they opened up and were throwing grenades where we were harbored. And they came through. They walked through, just shooting.
How many would you say there were?
Seven or eight, a squad.
Yeah.
And then they get through to the defoliated area, and this one guy weighs up, and there was another 2 or 3 squads up at the top of this. They wanted to push us out into this area so they could ambush us. But we were this much ahead of them.
I don't
How
know.
about that for psychic?
I don't know if you believe in God.
Well, God sure talked to this guy and said, get the hell out of there.
There's some.
I don't know if God's that micromanagement, though,
Well, he certainly had some gut instincts, and you guys followed it too.
Yeah, well, see,
And
we
listen.
were okay. If somebody was upset, you had to say, okay, well, it's hardship, but we'll do whatever we need to do.
Would you have had anybody in your group that ever was in Vietnam before? All of you were, I know you called yourself
No.
replacements, you were Brendan.
I called us snuffies,
What does that mean?
that we were expendable. That it was okay if we got killed, because we weren't the real guys.
Sure. Oh dear. Well, what a good feeling.
Yeah, it's nice to know where you're at anyway.
Did you stay with that same group, or you always?
Well, there was always people leaving, and
Yeah.
the rotating thing, because I had Corporal Thompson was really good point man. So was Corporal Taylor, and they kept rotating. So that's how I finally ended up as a point man, because I was trying to learn
Sure.
OJT
Sure.
kind of stuff.
Sure. So, what determined that you were going to move on or go back to base camp? Or, let me ask it this way. How long were you out in the field? Most of the time?
7 to 10 days.
At a time?
Yeah, and then-
And then through the year, percentage-wise?
They said I was on 19 patrols.
19, wow.
But they don't count patrols as shootouts.
They don't.
No, you'd come into a zone, like this one time we came into a zone, and I look out the window, and there's these 3 NVA running over, and they throw a tarp off a 50 caliber machine gun. And I'm saying, shoot, to this guy who has a 50 caliber over here, and he kills him. That's not a patrol.
Gotcha.
I'm saying, we found him.
Yeah.
I think that's what we were sent there to do.
Exactly.
But no, you don't get those. You got to put your feet on the ground, or it doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Touchy subject.
No, they're not anything like that.
Can you remember when you killed your first enemy or enemies?
I can't say that I really killed anybody. I mean, I shot at a bunch, but we were in these situations where you couldn't go over and say, hey, I got this one. No, there was
so you never did
15 or 20 of them, or like the team killed probably 200 to 300 because we blew up villages where the NVA were.
Right.
And that was men, women, and children.
Correct.
So we did, I think, 3 of those where they were there, so we considered them unfriendly villages.
Did you ever have any contact with the Roth, the South Koreans?
Just Thompson bought a Car 15 from them, and they had built these 250-round magazines for it, and Corporal Thompson sold me that car, and there was only 2,000 of them in Vietnam at the time. But somehow the Koreans got this one, probably stole it, and they built these homemade 50-round magazines. So my weapon, I carried 100 rounds because I had one upside down. Yeah, for a point man, that's really cool. I mean,
were you fulfilling?
Yeah, any 18-year-old kind of dream, I had it all. That's crazy. It really is. And I'm saying the 18-year-olds, you don't want it. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, 19 patrols. That's a lot of patrols.
Is it?
It seems like.
Because I figured I'm more like 26 or 27, considering the real misses in helicopters and stuff. So,
was your main transportation by chopper then?
Yeah,
in and out?
CH-46 every time. And the cool thing about it is we didn't have like lieutenants or captains. They were majors and colonels that flew those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like high brass. Maybe they needed medals or something. I don't know.
Interesting. How about your sea rations?
Oh,
I mean,
one story about sea rations. I went and picked up my sea rations for patrol, and we'd only pick out certain foods because you can't carry. Well, we got a whole case. The one I got was from 1949, the year I was born.
Fresh as ever.
Yeah, fresh as ever.
And you guys got very creative.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But
we couldn't use fire.
Well, I was just going to ask you, obviously that would be.
It was all cold.
Exposure, yeah.
And even when the MRIs came in with where you poured water, you can't use fires.
Yeah. How about making sounds? Was it difficult?
No talking, hand signals only, until you're right close to somebody, or when you're on the radio, it's a whisper.
And the radio man, was he considered like the key person in your group?
We had 2 radios with us. We carried 2 because other teams carried 1, and guess what? That's who the NVA kills first.
That's right.
So, you want to have 2 in case you want to get out of there.
Yeah. So in your patrol, would you typically have a medic and a radio man?
Yes. At the end, I was the medic first, but then Doc Pratton and Doc Doyle, we had 2 different corpsmen. And they were, Pratton was until he rotated, and then Doyle was still there when I left, I think.
Did you think you were going to leave Vietnam?
No.
You didn't?
You want to hear this story?
Yeah.
Oh, God, this is an ugly one. Now, this one is bad. It's about
Take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time.
I can't remember if he was a private or corporal. Lance Corporal. I think he was Lance Corporal. He was on patrol, and this one guy opened up, and look out, there was 30 or 40 of them. And so they killed the radio man and the lieutenant. The NVA killed him right away. And so the sergeant, patrol leader, he was wounded. And so Corporal Heinemeyer, Charles Heinemeyer, he volunteered to run back into the kill zone to get the radio.
A real hero. Did he make it?
Oh yeah. He went in and got it, brought it out, saved the team.
What a hero.
And then it happened to him again. And he did the same thing. Went back into the kill zone, got the radio, saved the team. He had a week left. He was watching TV, and some Arvin was shooting rounds in the air, and one hit him in the neck and killed him.
A week left. That's tough.
And so your question was, did you think I was going to make it out? Up until that point, I thought I was. But when somebody gets killed watching TV, it's it's, you know, you go, well, when it's going to happen, you know.
No guarantees whatsoever.
He's one I get when people say, oh, you Vietnam vets. You know, that's when I get really, you know, here's this guy. You didn't know him.
That's exactly right. He is one of many unsung heroes.
He's in my book.
Okay, and all due respect to him. Did you ever get to meet his family?
No.
Or any connection afterward?
Mm-mm.
That would be a tough one to knock on that door.
Mm.
Tough one.
No, he was like me. He was really tall guy, good-natured. You know, he was just a kid. And he did what you're, you know, again, he was a snuffy. He wasn't like the real Recon guys.
Do you think that is an instinct in most of you to do something like that? Or does that just take a special kind of bravery and character?
I think it's intuition. I think if you think you can make it, you'll do it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it has to do with intent. And, you know, if you make it, you did fine. If you didn't, you're dead, you know.
Is there almost an impulsive
Yeah,
thing?
it's like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Everybody's sitting around going, oh, shit, I can't do that. But then somebody says, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's instinct that, yes, I can do that. Because I think that's what I developed in Vietnam was my instinct is absolutely on target. I am never wrong when it comes to thinking about stuff about to happen.
Well, I mean, the unique type of training and experiences that you have had that most people will never have.
Mm-mm.
Never.
Mm-mm.
That's right. Survival skills.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Do you feel like you were well trained for when you got over there? Did it come through?
All I needed was map skills, and I had those. Mm-hmm. I had those. I could do anything with the map. Mm-hmm. I could tell the team exactly where we were in jungle. I mean, you know, how do you see that?
That's right. That's exactly right. It gets real dark and creepy at night. And
yes, it does.
Can you explain that? You hear everything, or creepy?
You want to hear something creepy?
Yes.
Okay, we find this. We're out and it's getting dark, so we're looking for a harbor site. So we find this big dish type thing, and it's made out of limbs and twigs and bushes and stuff. It's like a big nest. So we go, God, this is perfect. We can do a 360 here and set up our claymores, and we got a good night's sleep. Cool. So about, I don't know, 1:32 in the morning, we hear, and we're going, oh shit.
Hopefully it wasn't a 7-foot snake.
No, and all of a sudden we hear rocks coming in, and it was a rock ape. We had found a rock ape's nest.
What is it?
It's a rock ape. It's an ape like big ape,
I've
and
never heard of one.
And he was pissed off because we were in his bed, and he was throwing rocks at us. That's why we call them rock apes.
I've never heard of that.
He was attacking us, and nobody fired. You know, it was just like
He was well trained by the North Vietnamese.
he was attacking. Yeah.
Did you?
But that was interesting. That was like,
gosh, weird. Just so weird.
yeah.
Too bad you didn't get a picture of that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't see him, but we could hear this animal, and all these rocks coming in.
My gosh.
None of us got hurt.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to throw a rock in the jungle, by the way.
He literally lived in the jungle, in a whole cave?
No, it was this homemade dish type thing with limbs and bushes, and he was sleeping there. That was his bed.
Is that the only time you've ever come across something like that?
Oh yeah, that was big too. Again, we talk about that stuff when we get back. It's like, who gets this kind of stuff?
Oh, golly. Did they talk much when you went over about to beware, and I keep talking about the snakes, but the insects, the malaria, the snakes, any of that?
Our radio man got malaria in Anwa, and it was terrible. He was a great Corporal Hubbard. He was a Mormon, and he was really good radio guy. And we got back from patrol, and I guess he got malaria, and his rack was, right next to mine. So, again, I don't think the bugs liked me that much. They liked him.
You all were taking malaria pills every day? You were not? Okay. No. So how far over did you get close to Cambodia?
No, Cambodia, Laos. 3 times.
Inside?
Yeah, we went.
In Laos?
We went to Laos, yes. And Ho Chi Minh Trail there, and we blew up a supply stash, and it somehow pissed off the people at the Paris peace talks. That was in the Stars and Stripes, that a company of Marines invaded Laos, and it was just 7 of us, I think. Of course, we were a platoon. So,
Well, and furthermore, we're going to get a little political here. You were supposed to go over for what reason?
To monitor the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos.
But the purpose of the whole Vietnam War. Why were you sent? In your understanding.
For me, it was because I wanted to help the Vietnam people, because the propaganda was the NVA and people would come in and kill the leaders and take the rice, and then they were subject to communist propaganda and stuff. I went, what? That's not right.
Oh, right. So, yeah.
So it wasn't the U.S. government saying, this war, we need to do that. It was me saying, I don't think I want that to happen on my planet.
Yeah. And do you think the guys that were fighting alongside you felt very much the same way, that there was a mission and a purpose?
No, I think most people didn't have that idealistic. See, I was idealistic. My brothers had gone. They had experienced this kind of stuff. I had to go and experience some stuff too, or else I'd be just this brother, hey, what are you, kind of thing, So, it was that, but it was more, maybe I can do something that will stop these NVA from doing this to the villagers.
You came to that philosophy after you got over there and seeing what you saw, is that correct?
No.
Or even before?
Even before, when the propaganda got me that, boy, they can't do this. Why are they doing this to these poor people?
Right. Again, the guys that you were fighting alongside, did they pretty much feel pretty much the same way, you think?
Not necessarily so.
It's not a trick question.
No, I'm just saying not necessarily so, because I don't think they were as gung-ho, and they were just serving their time in the service. But me, it was like a quest, It was like, what can I do that is outstanding, I'm in this position, so why not do the best you can?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you run across any Green Beret groups?
Yeah, that would piss me off too. God. Okay, here we are. When we're in the shit, we call up and they say, well, we can't give you helicopters right now because they're resupplying Alpha Relay and, whatever. They're doing something. And so at Anwa, there was this camp, and it was Green Beret Camp. And guess what they had right next to them? A squadron of helicopters for them. Okay. They had their own helicopters. We had to borrow them we borrowed one from the general. We couldn't, they were all being maintenance, and it was a brand new helicopter, and we got word that, hey, don't break out the windows. It's the general's helicopter, and if you break him out, he's gonna be mad. We go in, they shoot, shoot out these windows.
Oh my gosh. So there was
So
a bit of
that,
a
I said,
rivalry.
I thought, he could probably get some more windows.
Oh, so there was a little bit of rivalry going on there.
Oh, yeah, between the Green Berets, they had anything they wanted, and we had to say, could we have
The snuffies.
the Snuffies? Yeah.
Well,
And they say it about it in all these Marine things, that we did stuff with minimal, we had hardly anything.
don't you believe it?
Well, I would say so, 1949 Sea Rats. I mean, that wasn't that good.
Good answer. Well, now, getting back to this
Oh, yeah.
book, the highlights, what would you like, in fact, I'm going to say it, it's called Debriefed, and you already
Yeah,
did talk
Debriefed.
about it, and by Lance Corporal R.L. Roth, and I'm holding it right here.
Yeah.
And so, Ron, tell me some highlights, first of all, why you wrote the book, and some of the highlights from the book.
Oh. I wrote it because I have a friend, and she's a photographer, and I play guitar, and she got involved with me, taking pictures of me and stuff. But I would talk to her about Vietnam experiences, and she would just say, "Well, you ought to write these down." So I have way too many. It's overwhelming. Well, just start and write just a certain thing down. And so I did, and then I put this down, and then all of a sudden I had a whole, it got bigger and bigger.
I'm going to have you hold it while you're talking.
It got bigger and bigger, and that's me. That's a picture of me getting ready for patrol, and it has all kinds of good pictures, like this. I have this. These were my personal trainers,
Oh,
my DIs, and
them.
yeah. And if you look at this guy, he really isn't happy. And I think it's because of us.
They're not supposed to be.
But this book has so much in it. Letters home that I wrote to my mom. My mom saved everything. Has my draft notice that come and join us, and this. Oops, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I did that. This is.
See, Dick, you might have to time out.
Do we need to take a break?
I can.
No.
Okay. This right here is a apparatus to extract us from the bush. We designed it. It's an umbilical cord,
Huh.
and you can see us being picked up as an external load. We became external loads, and now it's commonplace. But when we did this, there was nothing like this before.
External load.
Yeah, we were an external load on a
Is that like
CH.
being a snuffy?
Yeah, pretty close. It can be. There's a story about that too. In here.
Oh my God. The military, you have to say, you guys have your own language.
That's what Barbara was saying, that the reason why there's a glossary in the back of this book of all the military words and stuff.
Yes.
So, because if you were to read this and you weren't in the military, you would be going, I don't know what he's saying. But this is really interesting. This is the movie I took when I was in a firefight. And it shows napalm, us dropping napalm, and it shows me my Kit Carson scout. He was a PRU Viet Cong that was assigned to me as a translator.
Oh, you translate, yeah. Well, that's, took you 3 years for that.
And then here's what we did to that base camp.
Boy, you lit it up.
Yeah, we destroyed that area.
Lit it up.
Yeah, I can't. But this is an interesting one, and I don't know how much time we have or anything.
Probably we'll have to get out of here in probably about 10, 15 minutes.
This one is a story about 16 NVA that we ran into, and then they turned into 900, and we were in their base camp.
Wow.
We were in their base camp. We could hear them building hooches around us.
What did you do?
We didn't eat because that smells, and we didn't want them to know where we were. So we waited until it rained. It took 6-7 days, and then it rained, and then we ate.
Yeah.
We didn't eat because you open a can of chicken and rice, they're going to smell chicken and rice and say, we don't have chicken and
So
rice.
how did you ease your way out of there?
Well, it's interesting. They didn't get up until 9 o'clock in the morning. And so we called for helicopters early, 6, 7 in the morning. Have them out here early. So once they said they're on their way, we picked up and walked through their camp, up their trail, went up to this top place where there was a bomb crater, and they came in and they dropped this spy rig that I was showing you, that stuff where we become an external load. And we were lifted out, and as we were being lifted out, I threw a couple grenades up on top of them.
My God. Was it a long cord?
Yeah.
And how, you were just dangling until they dropped you somewhere?
Yeah, till they brought us back.
How many, God, how many miles would you have gone?
20 miles. 2,000 feet.
And then we're like...
And I liked the bottom because it was like flying. You didn't have anybody below you. And it was intoxicating. Once you got out of the heat and how severe the jungle was, it was like cooling, and it was like refreshing.
Like Disneyland.
Oh, it's like, hey, this is good, Most people, what are you doing underneath a helicopter?
But wouldn't you be a target?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's another story in here about I'm being lifted out of this firefight, and we're using the jungle penetrator. Now that's a thing where it's this thing that comes out of the door of a CH-46, and it has a cable that goes down, and it has this kind of big bullet type thing with legs, and you sit on this, and they lift you up one at a time. And we were being shot at while being lifted out. But the 50 caliber guy, he was keeping them down,
Gosh.
It's hard to believe what I'm telling you, isn't it?
It really, war is, it's almost insane.
Well, it's worse because it's futile.
Yeah.
It doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of money being spent for nothing.
But at the time, did you think there was going to be a victory?
Yes, I thought what I was going to do was going to help win. And then I get back, and guess what? We didn't win.
Yeah, let's.
And I swear, my team, we did them. Every time we met them, we didn't get hurt. They did. And so I look at that as I'm a winner because they didn't kill us.
That's right. That's right. That really is amazing. So, going fast forward, the last month, did they keep you out there, or did they bring you in?
Well, there's the other $1 million wound, I call it, in this book. The major, I was ready for patrol. I had all my grenades, I had everything ready, and we're going out the next morning. Major calls for practice, training boot pilots. So we had to go out with our gear and go rappel to train these new pilots that didn't know how to put a team into the bush. Pissed me off because the major wanted us to wear all our gear. And I'm thinking, I'm ready for patrol. I don't want to be So I'm up there, and we're up there. They did several teams, and I'm up there, and I'm pissed off, and I was good at rappelling. So I get out, flip under the helicopter, and I throw my brake off, pissed off. Oops, I lost my brake.
Oh boy.
I fell 80 feet
What?
and hit a steel runway. And when I hit, I was about 60 feet above my body, and I was looking down. And I said, God, I'm dead. And
You hit flat.
I hit flat like this. Boom! And I was above my body looking down at my body. And it felt good. It felt like, I could feel the sun and the wind and everything in me. And I felt like I was in motion. And I was saying, wow, if this is death, this isn't
Kind
bad.
of like an almost out of body.
That's what it was. If this is death, hey, I'm ready for it. This is cool. And so I was looking down, and this guy comes out. There's a group of Marines around me. This guy comes out, picks me up by my belt, and slams me down, and I'm back in my body, coughing and sputtering and
You didn't break anything.
nothing.
Wow.
And that has to do with when I was a kid, I was a pole vaulter. So I knew that as many square inches as you can get out there, you don't have the impact. If you put your arm out or your leg out, that's going to shatter them.
Goodness. That's
So from me knowing how to pole vault, I just went, as I was falling, I was going, if this fall doesn't kill me, when all these grenades and shit goes off, it's going to bring this helicopter right down on top of me.
Gosh darn.
I had that long to think. I really thought that. That's what I was thinking. I said, well, if this doesn't kill me.
Phew, amazing stories. I think
Debriefed.
I think you kept your angels very busy.
Somebody was definitely. I mean, I've been shot at. Nobody hits me. I mean,
It's can't explain it. Can't explain it.
I think it's. I was meant to make this book. Is really what it is, because there's too many things that happened.
Could have happened.
And there was a time where we were shot at, and a bullet came between this guy's foot and mine. And I'm saying to him, or he says to me, boy, you're lucky. And I said, no, that's your luck. That's not my luck. No, you ain't going to put that one on me, man.
Well,
so there was many times that I could have been killed. Too many.
No explanation.
No explanation. Except that I think this is it, and I don't know why.
Maybe someday you'll know.
Yeah. I'm for it.
Getting down to those last few days then, did they bring you guys in the last 30 days? Or what would happen?
See, when I hit, then I went out on one other patrol, and then I was on light duty.
In base camp.
Yeah, and then after that, I was EROS back to the United States.
Okay,
So it was right at the end when I hurt myself.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I tried another patrol, and I was like, God, I can't handle 90 pounds too much anymore.
No kidding. So was that a 13-month assignment?
Yes.
13 months, long time. And then when you went back to the airplane from Da Nang, was it?
A Continental jet, yeah.
Can you remember boarding that flight and taking off? Can you remember that experience?
It was quite a relief. Everybody was happy in that, But I have to say one more thing about when I got back, and that is, when I got back, they called us out in the evening and asked us, how many of you have less than 6 months left? Fall out over here in this platoon. So I had 4 months left. And I fall out, and we're all over there, and they said, you're all confined to your barracks. And we're saying, huh? Well, what?
For how long?
Well, we're going to get you out of our Marine Corps.
Our Marine Corps?
Our Marine Corps. You're contaminated, and we don't want you to talk to anybody on this base. You are being marched to chow and you're being confined to your squad bay.
Okay, now wait a minute. Are you saying physically or verbally or every way
What do you mean?
contaminated?
Yeah, we're contaminated because we have the truth, and they don't want you to tell anybody here because they're sending people from there.
Wow.
And if you're in some NCO club saying, well, it's not true what they're telling you, then they could have AWOLs, they could have a problem with troop deploying.
So you were kind of quarantined.
We were quarantined, and they had us out in 10 days.
What'd you think about that?
I was kind of happy, but I was also, how do I deal with the world?
Well, then right the next day, where did you go? Then what was next?
Well, Corporal Bennett was there, and I gave him a call, and he came and picked me up.
And you were where?
I was in El Toro Marine Base.
Uh-huh.
And we got drunk and high, and we're celebrating me being back, him being back, it was that. And then in a day or two, we decided to go see Sergeant Saunders, a guy that saved my life, one of my, another experience that it's in here. And he's a black guy, and he was in Watts, and there was some sort of riots going on, and so, but anyway, we show up and knock on his door, and there's a big black guy comes out, and he saes, what are you doing here?
At his home?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Where we had his address, and so we were just hoping that we could, find him. So we show up there, knock on his door, and then, what are you guys doing here? It's like, you're white, man. What are you doing here? We're here to see Sergeant Saunders. And he goes, shuts the door and comes, and Sergeant Saunders comes out, and he's like, wow, so glad you're here.
What a reunion.
So glad you're here.
Yeah.
We go in, we start getting drunk. They bring in some terpenhydrate, which is some sort of codeine thing, and pretty soon I find myself the next day curled up with a blinking sign in the front yard.
Okay.
So it was a good night, and we had coffee and talked and left.
And then what? Did your family know you were coming home? Or did
Not
they know
at that point. Not at that point.
They didn't know you were home.
And then Corporal Bennett, drove me up to where is it? Petaluma, where my brother lived, and dropped me off. And then my brother and I, the artillery guy, drove up to my parents' house in Walla.
In where?
Walla Walla.
Here.
Yeah.
And what was the reception like? The reunion with your parents?
That was pretty disappointing in that, it wasn't like a welcome home thing. It was like, well, you're back. I hope everything went good over there. And you'll find a nice girl and the picket fence. And I'm like, fuck, man. No, I don't think so. We're not right away.
What did you do?
I stayed in my parents' basement for about 6 months. And just chilled. I mean, I didn't go up. I didn't go to the parks.
Exhausted.
I was mentally, physically unable. My mom would come down. I'm going to the store. Come on, let's go. No, I don't go to stores.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah. So you just slept and hibernated. Yeah.
I smuggled back a bunch of Vietnamese weed in my movie projector that I made the book with. Anyway, I had some weed to smoke, and it helped.
Did your mom worry about you?
I'm sure she did, but what can you do? And the wisest thing I did was I went to the VA and I said, I want my medical records from Vietnam now.
Yes.
I don't want them in 6 months. I want them now. And they got them. And it shows how I fell out of a helicopter and all this stuff,
Did you start getting treated then at the VA?
Yeah, that wasn't any worth talking about,
Was, no counseling, no jobs?
You go for an interview,
Yeah.
You're in the service, all right, what'd you do? Well, I was a point man for a force recon team. We tore them up. Next.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we don't want somebody like that with us.
Yeah. Now, you stayed in Walla Walla?
No, I went to school. That's another bad story. I took the GI Bill, went to school to become more acquainted. I was a musician before. I was pulled out of, and sent to Nam and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a band and we were making $150 a night each. And so I was thinking I'd get back into that. And so I couldn't because all my friends, draft dodging friends, and they were kind of tentatively, who is this guy, So I went to Cornish School in Seattle, which is an art and music school, and I studied with the best players on the West Coast.
Guitar.
Guitar.
Oh, interesting. That had to be therapeutic.
Well, yeah, until I found out I could get a tutorial assistance from the government, and they wanted to know what I did before I went to school here. And so I thought, well, if they want to know what kind of bands or what kind of music experiences, so they know I'm serious about being, in the music school. So I tell them all the bands I was in and all this and what we did and that. They sent me a letter back saying, "You're already a musician. What are you doing in school?"
Okay.
And we're stopping your benefit and we want our money back. And so they took my disability for years.
Wow.
To pay back the school.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I say in the book here, I say, couldn't they have seen that maybe I could have got a teaching certificate? And maybe I could have been in society, possibly? No.
You were hitting brick walls.
Everywhere. They diagnosed me paranoid schizophrenic. The VA did.
My goodness. Well,
They didn't want PTSD then.
Yeah.
So, paranoid schizophrenic due to your childhood. Huh?
Boy. Well, did
Thank you.
come back? So, going forward then, did you get a job, get married?
Eventually I did. No marriage. No.
Did
no,
you,
no, no.
you did get a job?
Yeah, and the way I got it was I went to this place called CVAC in Seattle. And I had this one guy, I set him up. I hate to go recon on him, but every Thursday at 1 o'clock, I would be there to see him and ask for a job. And he would say, well, what do you do? And I said, I'm a great mechanic. And he said, well, what kind of paper do you have? What do you mean? What school do you, I haven't been to school. I'm a mechanic. I don't need to go to school to be a mechanic. I take things apart, put them together, And so we went like that for 6 months. Every Thursday at 1 o'clock, I'd show up. And finally, I was really destitute,
You had to be
broke.
discouraged.
Well, yeah, because nobody was helping. And so I show up and I said, today you're going to help me. And he says, what, you got paper that I can get you a job? I said, yeah, I was trained. I was trained in counterinsurgency. And I'm going to have to use it when I leave this building here because I need money and I'm going to go get it. That's what I told him. And I said, and I'm going to keep doing it until they get me. And when they get me, I'm going to tell them how much you helped me. And he jumps up, goes to this, how does $10.50 an hour sound to you?
Well,
That's how I got to be an engineer.
my God. So
And I had to threaten somebody.
Right. Those were tough times, very tough times for you returnees.
They didn't like us.
No,
And they didn't, the VA and stuff didn't really know what to do with us. It was very confusing
It was
for
a
them.
very, very tragic time. So fast forward
Yeah, okay.
now.
Huh?
Yeah. So you said engineering.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
I was an operating engineer, and I worked at, I had a third grade steam license, and I had a refrigeration license for large refrigeration units, York, they were about the size of this room here.
So is that where you finished up with your career time?
Well, I was there 20 years, and I ended up as the chief engineer of Marriott in Beaverton, Oregon.
All right. Well, you landed well.
Well, I can adapt. I can improvise. I can overcome.
Well, you certainly had the skills when you came home.
Oh, yeah, and nobody wanted to use them.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a question that was asked. What'd you do when you were in the Marine Corps? Well, I went from a kid to the baddest guy in the whole Marine Corps. What do you want me to do? I can do the same thing if you give me that opportunity. I can go from that kid to the baddest. So how come you can't trust me to do what? And
they just didn't understand.
They didn't understand that.
That was that unfortunate time.
How I could come from this, rock player to this rock ape bed stealer.
They're gonna have to read the book.
Yeah.
Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
No.
Did you attend any reunions?
No.
No. So you just split away from the service and moved on with your life?
Tried to.
Did you? Yeah, of course. Did you ever stay in touch with any of your buddies?
Richie Brown and Richie Fleming, they were two good friends, and I went and saw Richie Brown's marriage, and it disturbed me so much that I wasn't really interested in seeing it. He married, here's this Recon guy, and he was good. He's marrying this gal from Tennessee that her big thing is clogging.
Well, that could be fun.
Oh, man. It's a long ways from a recon team. Him clogging, it's like, oh God. Richie,
I bet she was.
What happened to you?
I bet she was very charming.
Oh.
So, oh dear, I'm sorry.
Oh, I know.
So moving along, I'm asking the questions.
All right, please.
Okay. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general? I think you kind of answered it.
That's a real tough one because I'm really against war because it's futile. But I'm also...
What if you had won that war?
I am a warrior. So even though I understand that it's futile, it's part of me. So I think maybe I'll read this. The most skilled soldier is not aggressive. The most proficient fighter never loses control. The most victorious commander does not bicker. The most efficient leader is humble before all. This is the true nature of life. This is matching Te to Tao, the Sutra by Lao Tse, 571 to 496 BC.
Boy, that's pretty profound.
I mean, well, we can't get away from war because that's human. We're vicious, but you don't have to revel in it. You don't have to bathe in it. It's something you want to treat very ginger. I guess that I don't know what word.
That's a good answer.
You want to leave it delicate. War, and it isn't. It's just spend the money, kill, and then it doesn't prove anything because what I call in the book here generational amnesia, which is the youth now doesn't understand what the cost that they, the generation before did, so they can be free. They don't understand the lives and the emotional loss that was there, and so the government can use them again, and the government makes their money that way.
Yep.
And my last thing I'd like to say is, it's too bad the biggest product we sell is war. Because what it did to me was it took me from a kid and put me in another world. When I tell people that I did this, they said, "Oh shit, well, I was in college and I drank a lot and had a good time." No, I didn't. The government grabbed me, did this to me, and then...
We had a veteran sit here a few years ago, and Korean War. He said, "You never get over war." And I believe that. I'll never forget that. So maybe you've answered this then. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Real negative. I'm the kind of person that could have done anything, but I was never given the opportunity because of my experience. Because I can adapt, improvise, overcome, where I don't need help. I can do it, so it taught me how to be autonomous to a point of not being social.
That would not be uncommon. No, not uncommon.
Well, you're taught this stuff and then you witness it. And you can't, like I joke about it, but I tell people, I'm the nicest serial murderer you'll ever meet.
Don't tell too many people that. They won't understand.
They don't understand that, though, because the bills and all that, we killed them all, and it's like, we did it regularly. That's what we,
You won all the battles.
That's what
you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
We didn't lose anything.
No, you didn't. Great answers. Is there anything you'd like to add to this that we did not cover in the interview? I feel like there's so many more questions, but anything else that you would like to add to your story? And you've done a very articulate job.
Thank you. I didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm back to this book. It's so powerful, the whole thing, from the first page of a draft notice to the last page of let me see if I can bring this up real quick, of a Main Street banner of me on top of a bunker in Anwang.
Oh, look at that.
It's quite a story.
Well, if someone is watching this video, they'd say, well, how do we get the book?
Well, we're right at the end. This is the last, I'm hoping this is the last edit. We've been through this book, and I had a friend of mine who was a Recon Marine that never served in war read it, and he was amazed. He said, I was trained to do this, but you just went and did it. So
that's really affirmation for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, him saying, wow, this is incredible, and the book reads like a novel. So I'm thinking this is the thing that's setting me free right now.
Oh, I believe that.
I'm looking at what my future has now for me instead of living this hell, and this is a hell. I may not seem like it's a hell, but it's because I've figured out how to not let it be a hell.
You never get over.
No. The shrinks I've talked to says your PTSD is something that's inside of you, and it'll always be there. but sometimes it'll be big and sometimes it'll be small.
Would you agree with them?
I would totally agree. But it's how you get it to be small is what you have to work on.
Yeah. Boy, Vic, do you have
One question. How did you escape the Sullivan Law? You have three of you were in Vietnam.
That's a good question. I love this one. So, my aunt writes the Marine Corps and says, Ronnie has a brother in Vietnam, and he can't go. So Captain Paddock calls me into his office and he says, Private Roth, you have a brother in Nam? I say, yes, sir. He's a helicopter pilot and he's killing them. And he says, well, that means you don't have to go. And I'm like, what? And he says, unless you sign this paper right here, and it's saying you're voluntarily saying it's okay that you can go to Nam while your brother's there. Signed it.
So you willingly, yeah. So you didn't have to go, yeah.
I didn't have to go, and I gotta read this one part. Here's the waiver for Vietnam. It's a letter to my mom. Well, as far as I know, I will not go to the Nam until Richard comes back, which is a good deal, only I hate to skate on my brother's life. I wish it were the other way around, because I would gladly risk my neck for him.
Wow. Wow. It's pretty powerful. Very powerful.
This book is killer. I'm telling you.
He saw that.
Yeah.
Your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
Well, and my cousin saw it, because she thinks I'm a real shithead, and she saw that, and it almost made her cry. She realized I wasn't that much of a
You
shithead.
need to get her a book.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
And like my friend Barbara says, nobody really knows you because they can't understand what you went through.
That is absolutely correct.
They do, and she has absolutely been instrumental. I have the story that Barbara Bido absolutely created the book.
Barbara, do you have anything to add today?
No,
Okay.
I think it's wonderful that Ron's here doing this. So.
Yes, thank you for all of your support.
Oh yeah,
Boy, you're blessed. You're blessed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This book, it's almost like it's meant to come out.
Yes.
You know, it's not. I don't know. It's very mystical for me.
Well, we're all going to find out, Ron.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen next.
Well, I'm going to make a comment to Vic, but I want to thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate your story.